I'm really closely watching what's going on in the Straits with the oil tankers. To me, that has significant global ramifications. If there's a recession or a depression, what it does to the global markets, that ripple could be far more significant than COVID. And I don't think the world's ready to take another right hook, mate. I just don't think we're ready.
Over the past few weeks, tensions between the United States, Israel and Iran have pushed the Middle East to the brink. My guest today is Captain Ben Johnson, a former fighter pilot who graduated as a fighter combat instructor, Australia's version of Top Gun, flew the FA-18 Super Hornet, trained with the US Navy and spent nearly a decade based in Qatar, operating out of Al-Udeid, the largest US base in the region. What does a fighter pilot notice in a conflict like this that the rest of us completely miss? What is actually happening inside the cockpit when tensions rise? And in a world now filled with missiles, drones and AI, are human fighter pilots still the decisive factor in air combat? Captain Ben Johnson, welcome to Another World.
Great to be here, Chris. Thanks for having me.
February 26, war breaks out in the Middle East. Do you see news clips that we see and see more going on?
The first tell for me is I wake up in the morning and my phone has gone bananas. So I'll have WhatsApps just read everywhere, just WhatsApp, and it's from my friends overseas who I work with. So living there for 10 years, that to me is something significant has happened or is about to happen. There's a few pieces moving around. So there was already a US carrier strike group in the area. There was another one moving into the area. And then the UK were talking about, and maybe they have mobilised theirs into the Mediterranean. So all of those movements over time, and even leading up to that, where all the fighters and all of the assets are moving into the region, the US, they don't do that for no reason, and they haven't made that many moves. The last time they did that was, I think, the Iraq War in 2003. Right. So significant assets going to the region, some indicators and warnings inside of the UAE where I lived and Qatar where I lived as well, and also from DFAT would suggest that things are building. And then obviously the rhetoric from the governments as well, particularly the US, you felt like something was going to happen.
The US president's been criticised for not having a clear goal. What do you think of that?
I'll caveat it with, I'm no geopolitical guru. Look, I think a lot of the data points to the Iranians developing nuclear weapons and the intent to use them. Once again, the sponsors of three major terrorist organisations, Hamas, Hezbollah and the Houthis, sponsored by them. So I don't think that theme of arming, weaponising them would change, and their hatred within the region. I mean, they're a powerful, powerful nation. They are a powerful nation, Iran.
Iran, yeah.
Absolutely.
And a big population.
Absolutely. And
90 million?
90 mil, thereabouts. Geographically, some very defensible terrain. And that sponsorship of those groups, as well as the ability to project those types of weapons, the regional powers were nervous. US and Israel were not going to tolerate it. So that's where we are. And is that his end goal? Who knows? There's obviously energy thrown into the mix when you talk about the Straits and what it's doing to the global situation right now. What is the end state of that? That's anyone's guess. It's a very troubling time.
Do you think we could see a 1970s Enron oil crisis again, like with prices?
Major governments are releasing all of their emergency stocks of oil at the moment.
Including us?
Including Australia. I think there's either talk of it or they have done it. But I think it's all about the reserves and, potentially the quality. Look, and talking about Australia's economy, inflation and that immediately will push things up, and we're already on the edge of some economic downturn, I would say. But this regional conflict is having ripples through the entire world. All the global markets. The longer this goes on, the more devastating these effects will be. Notwithstanding, people are dying. People are dying on both sides. The Americans lost some aircraft. There was a crash in the desert with one of their tankers. The
refueler.
That's right. Yeah. So,
what does that say to you? Is there a lot of activity going on?
it says that the air is full.
Is
Airspace
that-
is full. Tempo's high. There's a lot of aircraft flying, a lot of sorties, so the probability therefore just increases. Statistics would say that there is going to be an incident, and when there's a lot of lead flying around as well, for a simple term, these things will happen. And that's a risk that has been mitigated as much as they possibly can, but that will happen and most likely continue to happen.
And you've got a connection personally to the base there. What's happening at that base?
So Al-Udeid is the major US base in the Middle East, headquarters of Central Command. So that's where I lived for the better part of 10 years and would work there every day. It's grown a lot in that time, and right now, what I imagine is significant air defence units there. So the famous missile systems you see launching, on YouTube, on TikTok or whatever, shooting down other missiles coming in. So that's one function of the base. It's there to shoot down incoming ballistic missiles, to shoot down drones, and to also direct the fighters that are taking off from all over the region towards the fight.
Are they the same as the Iron Dome?
Yeah, look, there's a blend of different types of systems, but the concept's the same. You'd like to detect the incoming hostiles, missiles, drones, aircraft, and then target them and use assets to try and destroy them before they get within an effective range of destroying or degrading your assets.
A base, it's like a city into itself, isn't it? Isn't it? Right, yeah. And
Yep.
so you were talking about, especially in the start, it would have been on 24 hours.
Bases never sleep. Anywhere in the world, the bases never sleep. And right now...
Even in peacetime?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to stop people jumping the fence.
To get out,
And nowadays, no, to get in. And nowadays, famously when Ukraine launched those drones deep inside of Russia onto the Russian bases, those things could happen theoretically anywhere. So you've got to have defensive things and security patrols on your bases all the time. Yeah. I mean, you've got strategic assets living on those bases. But there, right now, it's 24/7. 24/7.
Operation of the base or sorties?
Oh, both.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It must be quite strange. 3 a.m. and a guy's just about to head off.
It is, and it's a real shift from peacetime operations to combat operations that these young men and women over there are now doing. And I would say 6-12 months ago, it's not really something they're thinking about. There was always hostilities potentially between Israel, US, and Iran. But for Iran to bring in the GCC countries, so you think in Saudi, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, Kuwait, Oman, and you've got Iraq, bringing them into the fight and targeting their critical infrastructure, civilian targets as well. So you're looking at water desalination plants. They're hitting civilian commercial vessels in the Gulf now as well. That is an escalation that was not really foreseen. Certainly, in my time there, with the ferocity that we are seeing, that is an escalation, without question.
Yeah.
And so, therefore, you are defending your country. They are going up there every single day, defending their country, defending their family, defending their farms, defending their cities, in what is a very small piece of sky over some of those places. My role now is very separate to what is actually going on directly in the Middle East. If I was in the military and the military wants you to go, you're going.
Yeah.
And that's your job, and you're trained to do that.
Yeah.
And you work up towards that. Your whole training cycle is based around that. Does a piece of me wish I was over there with all of my friends and colleagues that I've worked with and lived with for 10 years? Absolutely. I feel for them.
Right.
I absolutely feel for them. I know it.
Because they were taking heavy fire.
Oh, and they are every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, every day. I mean, these bases in that region, traditionally sponsored by the US, lots of hardened facilities around the place, once again layered with those anti-air defensive capabilities. There's multiple bases now, dispersed bases, and there's a lot of assets, whether it's in space or in the air, that are able to detect these targets and shoot them down before they get in range. But one of the things we're seeing, that with the advent of low cost, high volume unmanned systems,
Yep.
it's volume, and you can't. And you cannot shoot every single one of them down. No. We're seeing that in Ukraine, in Russia. We're seeing that in the Middle East now, where you can shoot down 94%. I think the numbers from CENTCOM might have been 94% or 87%, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But that's awesome. But those 6% are going somewhere. And you can imagine how devastating it would be if one of our cities were attacked. 94% get taken out. The people in the city are worried about the 6%.
Yeah.
And if one of them, heaven forbid, have a nuclear warhead on it, just that one.
Oh.
This is the reality of the new world that we're not the new world. It's modern conflict where this.
Are you talking about cluster bombs there?
Not particularly, but that's a good point as well. Where I think they've got 80 or 50 20 kilo warheads in each of them. But not even that. You've got the ballistic missiles coming in. You've got these Shahed drones coming in en masse.
I saw a fighter. You would have too. Chasing a drone. It looked like it was going slowly. For a fighter.
You are absolutely bang on. Like that fighter was going slowly, and those it looked like a Shahed drone. They will typically go, I call it 200 kilometers an hour. So it's for a fighter that's not fast.
That's slow, yeah.
So that fighter was really slow, and if you notice, the missile sort of popped off and almost fell like before it kicked off.
Right.
And then that's low. It's over a populated area. You can imagine what that's doing for the population going, what is going on here? And it's becoming normal. That's normalised. That was Dubai, I think.
Yeah. What Air Force would that have been?
Most likely the Emirati Air Force.
Right.
So
the one you were working for?
Yeah, I worked for them, started with them in late 2012.
US have got a lot more pilots, obviously. I heard that because you're per capita, you're getting a little more resources and more time. Did you notice when you went with the US Navy, did you feel like they would... Where did your training feel like it sat with them? Did you feel like you knew a bit more, or their training was better?
What I've learnt from doing training systems all over the world is there's lots of good ways to do it. There's lots of good ways to do it.
Right.
And whilst they might be different,
yes,
there are lots of good approaches to it. And I think if you go with an open mind and look at the best parts of what everybody does and go, that works. I understand why you're doing that in line with your whole operational ecosystem. So, for example, the US Navy might be about, we just need 200 pilots a year to get out to the fleet.
Yeah, okay.
Australia might need 8 pilots a year.
Yeah.
So it's there's a volume component of that, which they're just going to pump aircrew out, and they do it really, really well. Whereas we might stop for certain things to address things with a bit more time to, absorb the, 8, 10, 15 people. That can't. I'm not saying we can either necessarily, but there's just different approaches to it. I don't think there's the best way to do it. And I think anyone who says the best way to do it is my way is missing something.
More than one way to skin a cat.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, Ben, this is probably old news for you, but the dogfight days, are they over?
It depends on the conflict you're talking about.
Right.
So
you still need to be ready to do that.
You go back World War I, where air combat was, you get airborne, you go over the front lines, you're looking down at the trenches and the mud flying everywhere with the artillery going off, and you've got to literally visually try and find where the bad guy is. That's literally air combat,
visually,
basic fighter maneuvers, the oldest school.
Yes.
And then it works up to World War II, where you're getting airborne, you've got some basic radar, which is ground controllers, pushing you in the rough direction of where the bad guys are. So it's like the Germans are south.
Yeah, right.
Okay, we're going to go that way.
Okay.
They're at 18,000 feet, and it fine-tuned as the war went on.
Yes.
Nowadays, air combat and the integrated and network-centric warfare is completely different. However, once again, if you've got volumes of aircraft and unmanned, uncrewed systems out there, drones, at some point you might run out of your missiles, and then you're in, I've got my gun left, and the gun's a close-range weapon. You've got to get in there and you've got to gun them and you've got to kill them.
At some point, yeah, interesting. With AI, how long do you see the human pilots?
I look at what's being developed and what's being marketed from the big manufacturers of aircraft. So we're currently in the 5th generation of air combat aircraft. So you're talking about F-22, F-35, and they've been around for a while. So they have been around for a while. And then there's publicly announced was the 6th gen aircraft, F-47, I think it was. I think that's the name of the program. The 6th gen aircraft at this stage is advertised as a crewed aircraft. But what is also being advertised are these unmanned systems that will fly around you in formation that are unmanned, uncrewed, AI-driven, loyal wingmen.
Yeah.
So they'll be out there, they'll be jamming, they'll be shooting, they'll be taking the missile for you as like a,
Right.
you know, you're my lead and I'll take the kill on me. So I think there's a time and a place where we'll see that. And you look at some of the companies out there developing a lot of that type of software, which is uncrewed, AI-driven, loyal wingmen that you might have one of these 6th gen fighters and 4 or 8 of these collaborative uncrewed systems on your wing.
Yeah.
So I think there's a definite future for that.
Like an aircraft carrier group in the sky.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. But they're all flying together, all autonomously in a big formation, doing whatever you need them to do.
With this current scenario, what's your gut feel?
My gut feel is there was a decision to launch the offensive. I think they would have played out most of the scenarios of what likely things could happen and some of the most dangerous things that could happen. War game that for years, for decades, maybe even our whole lifetime.
Really?
So I think that they've played out those scenarios. Right. What do I think it could lead to?
Do you think they always foresaw Iran attacking its neighbours?
Yeah, I reckon they did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I look at the way that the GCC countries now have built their defence force capabilities up over the last decade. They're in good shape. You know, they're in good shape. Maybe 10 years ago, the capabilities were different. And maybe they couldn't have taken down the volume of incoming missiles and drones that were being thrown at them. But now they are. Yeah. So they would have played out these scenarios, analysed the risk of all of it happening. I don't think any nation in the world wants to go into conflict where the end result is doomsday.
No.
You know, I think that would be no.
Taking me into the cockpit of these pilots that might not have seen anything like this before. What's happening in the cockpit there?
The number one thing with any of the aircrews, they want to do their job. So they want to do their job really well, and you're trained really, really rigidly. All your skills and drills, all of the missions and training sorties you've flown to do your job. And is your job to be the leader of a formation of aircraft? Is your job to be the best wingman you can be? Is it to be the best, front or back seater in the aircraft you can be? You just want to do that job really well. And I liken that to a football team, a rugby team, where you've got your backline set. Everyone knows what they're going to do in that move.
Right.
And everyone executes that plan.
So they're thinking about their role.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And they've done it so many times that
That's it.
Yeah.
They want to do that job really, really well without necessarily the big strategic picture that's going on, because their job is to go, I want to look after this 50-mile area and I don't want to let anything in.
Right.
That's my job.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Yeah. What's the difference between a pilot who stays calm under pressure and one who doesn't?
And most military pilots are trained to maintain that calm, clear-headed focus on...
They wouldn't be there if they weren't like that.
No, and the whole training continuum, it's very different military training and civilian training. We train for these exact scenarios where you want a clear head, you want to stick to your work cycles, stick to your procedures, stick to your role.
Yeah.
And with everything else going on around you, it's compartmentalising that, putting that into those little boxes in your brain, dealing with it later. And that's all in the past, or it's going on around you. What is my job? What is my role? And sticking to that script. And that's I guess, without going too far down.
Process, not outcome.
Correct. Yeah, bang on.
Is that concentration?
It's practice. It's discipline. It's doing it 1,000 times. And not just doing it 1,000 times, it's doing it perfectly 1,000 times and practicing to success every single time.
Yeah. And
debriefing it, understanding where you might have done something wrong, and then reviewing that and becoming even better and better and better over time. It's a pretty constructive world and constructive land, the fighter and aircrew community, where you're always learning, mate, because you want to be the best.
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you've got to be better than your enemy. Otherwise, you're going to die.
Can't get higher stakes.
Simple as that.
What do you think us as civilians would not be fully appreciating?
What it would be like to be in a city or a country that you've lived in for so long under constant bombardment or attack. And we are very blessed in Australia. I think you've got to go back to World War II to look at the last time there was an attack like that on Australia. To be under that constant threat of
Was it
something falling out of the sky, something landing, in your backyard, in your house, not to say that it was actually targeted at your hotel or the airport you're at or whatever it might be. The other part is when movement stops, when you can't leave those countries when you want to,
right?
That really elevates the stress, the pressure, and
You feel a bit closed in.
they feel trapped.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, they can't get out.
Right.
They're being bombed every day. And
Right.
I know it's been happening in parts of the region for a long time, and I'm not taking away from the fact that that may not have got the publicity in Australia that it now gets, because it's become far more regional, but it's been going on there for our lifetimes. In terms of the ferocity and the aggression and the loss of life, I think that's going to stay for a while. I think the Americans certainly would like regime change. I'm sure of it. And until that happens, I'm not sure where it's going to go. So they're the things I'm watching.
Ben Johnson, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris.
If you enjoyed this episode, you might enjoy one of these. Please like, share and subscribe. Thank you very much.